Today we're going to be looking at structure again, and I've done a short video today on sentence starters and how to write your paragraphs, especially the opening sentence of every paragraph in response to your structure question. So this particular video is really about sentence starters to help you with your structure answer. So just to straight away go back and remind you or refresh your memories a little bit about the different structural devices. There they are right in front of you. Now, there are many structural devices, as you know, but every single text will have a few common structural devices. For example, every single text will have an opening and introduction. Every single text will have long and complex sentences. You'll have short and complex sentences. There will always be a shift in focus. And because there's a shift in focus, there's normally a shift in tone, right? You might find dialogue, you might not find dialogue. So it depends on what the text is about. Every single text will have a narrative perspective. Every single text will have a description of setting. In your paper one especially, the fictional writing, you'll always have some sort of problem or some sort of dilemma, right? Look for that. You might have cyclical structure, but as you can see, there's about 4 or 5 of them you will get in every single text, no matter, what exam you're writing, whether it's AQA or Excel, and pick those and then focus on them and decide about how you're going to talk about them to show how they engage the reader's attention. Now let's go straight away to the opening and beginning. You must talk about the opening of the extract because there's always something happening in the opening. The writer will always focus your attention at the beginning and reveal to you something either about the setting or maybe a character, maybe the dilemma, right? And you might begin like this. You might say at the beginning of the extract, the writer draws the reader's attention to the character or maybe to the setting or to the weather or to the object. Maybe it could be an animal or a dilemma right at the beginning. Okay, that's your sentence starter. But then you've got to go on to say, now how does this engage the reader? Does it build up the suspense? What does it do? Right, so look for that and you can use that sort of sentence starter to help you. Right, so let's look at the first person narrative. Now just say, for example, you have an astronaut who is the character in the text, and the astronaut is telling his story from his point of view. So it's a first person narrative, right? Now, if it's a first person narrative, you might want to begin your sentence like this. Through the use of the first person narrative, the writer enables the reader to empathize with the character, and therefore, in this way, for example, the writer engages the reader by doing this, creating suspense, having a stronger bond. So have a look to see if it's first person narrative, and if it is a text that is written in the first person point of view, you definitely know there's a bit of empathy created, a close bond. So start off like that, and this could be one way in which you actually start your sentence. Okay, let us go to cyclical structure, or you might know it as circular structure. Now for cyclical structure, guys, you know that the text begins and ends in pretty much the same way, and you might want to start like this. The writer uses cyclical structure to illustrate that the character is trapped in an experience, or maybe a particular situation, or maybe in a reality that is quite inevitable, and perhaps this engages the reader's interest by, and you say how. So remember, this is only a sentence starter. Now you've got to explain how this engages the reader. And if you look at my previous video on structure, I've given you ideas on how you might write about and how you might explain ways in which the reader is engaged in your text. So look for circular structure, and this is one way in which you can actually start your sentence or your paragraph on structure regarding circular structure. Now let's go on to short sentences. Now, as you know, short sentences are used in all your texts. You'll have a combination of short sentences and long sentences. Okay, normally with short sentences, guys, it's there for a particular reason, and you might begin like this. As a sentence starter, you might say that the writer makes use of short sentences to quicken the pace of the text, maybe, or to build up the tension for the reader, right? In this way, this engages the reader and, for example, creates more suspense. So this is only a sentence starter. Again, you've got to now explain how this engages the reader. What does it do when it quickens the pace of the text? Okay, now let's go on to the shift in focus. You will always get a shift in focus in the text where the writer moves perhaps from the setting to the character, maybe, then to, maybe the character's emotions after that. So if you have a look on your screen, I've got a setting, but then later on it might move to the character, right, in that particular setting. On that mountain range there, it's a close-up view, as you can see, but it's the shift in focus now from setting to character, and it might cause a shift in tone. So you may start like this. You may say, the writer then shifts the focus of the reader from the setting to the character, and from there, guys, it might go to the dilemma that the character is facing. Perhaps they're stuck there and they can't come down. Maybe the struggle that they're facing up on that mountain face, that expedition that this character is on. And this, of course, causes a shift in tone, which engages the reader by ... As you can see, you've got to say how now it engages the reader. Does it create uncertainty? Does it build up the tension and suspense? So have a look for the shift in focus. It will definitely be there. Let's move on. Now, broad to narrow focus, guys, it's like taking, lenses. It's like taking a pair of lenses and focusing narrowly, going and zooming into a particular thing in the setting, right? So have a look, find out, see if that happens in the text where you go from a broad to a narrow focus, and why is this happening? And a way in which you might start your paragraph could be like this. The writer then narrows the focus in the text and draws the reader's attention to the character's emotional state and his dilemma as he realizes that he can't escape. In this way, the writer engages the reader as it builds up the suspense, for example. Now, as you can see, I don't know what your text is going to be like, right? You don't know what your text is going to be about. But this is the start, and then you say in which way the writer engages the reader and holds the reader's attention. This here, guys, is your flashback. Now, as you know, flashback relates to time and going back in time, right? It could go back in time to the previous day, the previous minute, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, last week, right? It's a flashback. Now, normally the flashback is used as a kind of straddling, when the writer straddles between or shows the character going between the past and the present. And of course, it's there for a particular reason. So you might start your sentence about flashback like this. Through the use of the flashback, the writer engages the reader by revealing the context and the background of the character's dilemma. And this is one way in which you can start your sentence, right? But then you've got to say what this does. How does it engage the reader? Perhaps it gives the reader some sort of understanding of the character's, past memory, which has now had an impact on the character and has caused him to behave in this way. Perhaps you might have another sentence starter that reads like this. The writer juxtaposes the narrative from the present to the past and back to the present again to engage the reader by, and then ... you got to say how this engages the reader. What does it do? Does it reveal something about the character? In this way, does it build up the suspense? Or does it engage the reader's sympathy, for example? So have a look at that. There could be many reasons or many ways in which the writer has engaged the reader through a flashback. But as you can see again, these are two different types of sentence starters that you can use when you're talking about flashback. Okay, now let's move on. Long sentences. Long sentences are lovely to speak about in your text and in your answer on structure, because the long sentences really, really do reflect different ideas and things about characters and what's going on in the text, and we need to know those different reasons in which, or different ways in which they engage the reader. So you might start your sentence like this. Through the use of the long sentences, the writer engages the reader by slowing down the pace of the text too, and it could be many reasons. Maybe reinforce the struggle, the exhaustion that the writer feels or the character feels. Maybe to really reflect the huge expanse of land that lay before the character. Maybe to, look at how and reflect the character's emotional turmoil and troubled thoughts and fragmented thoughts that he might be experiencing because of a particular situation. So have a look for that, guys, and write about that. But here's one way in which you can start your sentence for that answer. It gives you a good start for that answer so you can continue writing about it. The next thing I want to speak to you about, guys, is the dilemma. Now, your dilemma is your problem. Your text might start off with the problem, and you could say in the beginning, the writer focuses the reader's attention on the dilemma of the character, or the dilemma might come later on in the text. And if it comes later on in the text, you might start your sentence like this or your paragraph like this. The writer creates a gripping dilemma which engages the reader by building up the tension and suspense when the problem is revealed, right? The problem might be revealed through the context, that means the situation that the character finds himself in, or it might be revealed through the dialogue in the text. But you can have a look to see exactly what is taking place, what sort of action, what sort of dialogue, what sort of situation is happening that reveals the dilemma. Have a look for that, but this is one way in which you can actually start your discussion about dilemma as a structural device in the text. Now I want to go on to, as you can see, dialogue. Right, dialogue is when characters are speaking to each other. Normally, when it's a fictional text, you might have very short exclamatives being used, rhetorical questions. You might have interrogative phrases that are being used between characters, which might build up the tension. But one way in which you can start your answer on dialogue or your paragraph on dialogue is to say, the use of the dialogue introduces the dilemma for the reader, and this engages the reader as it, right? So another sentence starter for you that will help you to introduce the dialogue and then go on to explain why the dialogue is quite interesting for the reader. The third person narrative, guys, is very different from the first person narrative. The third person narrative, as you know, is the omniscient, all-observing observer, right? The third person narrative normally gives the reader a chance to know everything that is going on in the text so that the reader can make his or her own judgment about the characters and what's going on. So let's have a look at some sentence starters for the third person narrative. You might want to start like this. Through the third person narrative, the writer enables the reader to be an omniscient, detached observer of the events and the characters in the text. This engages the reader as it allows the reader to be detached, to be able to make a judgment about the characters, to be able to predict, what's going to happen at the end, or what's going to happen later on in the text, for example. Okay, so that's your third person narrative. Foreshadowing. Now, foreshadowing comes in the guise of pathetic fallacy, remember. So when you're talking about structure, you should not be mentioning pathetic fallacy. Rather, you speak about foreshadowing and then mention how it's conveyed through the pathetic fallacy. So your sentence starter will go like this. The writer makes use of foreshadowing through the pathetic fallacy in the text to prepare the reader for the tragic ending, or for the unfortunate turn of events, or maybe for the unpredictable events that take quite a downward turn later on in the text. And normally you would recognize the pathetic fallacy through the description of the weather and the setting quite early on in the text. So don't forget your foreshadowing, and this is one way in which you could actually start your answer on foreshadowing when you're answering the structure question. I do hope that you found this lesson useful today, guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if there's any specific topic you would like help on, do leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.